Welcome to Political Beatdown. I'm Ben Meiselas, joined by Michael Cohen. Hopefully, everybody had a restful Labor Day. We'll show the contrast between what President Joe Biden was doing on Labor Day versus what Donald Trump was doing on Labor Day. Hint, Donald Trump was attacking workers. I want to hear from Michael Cohen, get some updates about the $500 million federal court case that Donald Trump filed against Michael Cohen. I know just moments ago you may have got an update there about Donald Trump's deposition. I want you to break the news here first on, let us know what's going on Political Beatdown. Speaking of depositions, I want to go through that New York Attorney General deposition transcript of Donald Trump. I think it was incredibly incriminating. This is in the civil fraud case where trial is set for next month. Let's go through some of the most incriminating, ridiculous, absurd statements Donald Trump made there. Then we should also talk about a filing today from George Santos, and the Department of Justice seems to suggest that George Santos is in plea negotiations with the DOJ. We'll talk about that. Some special counsel Jack Smith updates and more. But Michael Cohen, how are you doing, sir?
All righty. Like yourself, I hope all of our brigaders had a fantastic couple of days off and they had a fantastic Labor Day. So today, as you may well know, my lawyers, Danya Perry and Ben Brodsky, appeared before the Southern District of Miami for a hearing in regard to the Trump versus Cohen $500 million retaliatory frivolous lawsuit. One of the problems that we've had so far, of course, is scheduling this deposition, which is supposed to be scheduled for tomorrow. And as a result of the Georgia arraignment, it was questionable of whether or not tomorrow would be a day, because Donald, of course, had the opportunity to go in person and to have the indictment read to him and then to, of course, put in his plea of not guilty. Well, he elected not to do it that way, as did the other 18 co-defendants. They all waived their right to the reading, and so they just did it via paper, the same way that Donald did, all of whom pled not guilty. And so I truly did expect that the court was going to hold Donald to tomorrow's deposition, but due to a new lawyer that's coming on to assist Alejandro Brito, brigaders, get a load of this crap. So they bringing on another lawyer in order to help protect Donald in his Fifth Amendment right claims that he will probably be invoking during that deposition, because some of the questions that could be asked of him could also incriminate him in other cases that are currently pending, and therefore they want this other lawyer there to assist them in ensuring that his Fifth Amendment rights against self-incrimination aren't violated. I mean, this is just the craziest thing. The guy brings a $500 million lawsuit. We are pushing every single day, not just to get this deposition, which of course we're entitled to, but also the discovery documents. And something that also came out of today's hearing, twofold. First and foremost, October 3rd, that deposition, as the judge stated, come hell or high water, that court-ordered deposition is going forward. So that's going to be a great day for us. The second is they want to know, based upon the documents that have been provided, they want to know the discovery search terms and how it was conducted, because let's say they sent 200 documents, more than half of them, or at least half of them, are duplicative. And so they don't really provide the discovery that was requested by my counsel. So they now have to put in an affidavit, which has to, of course, be confirmed and attested to by Donald Trump as well. That obviously puts us once again in a stronger position, because it's going to be interesting to find out how they went ahead and they did the search. Because one of the big problems that you have when it comes to Trump is getting the documents or the discovery information that you're seeking and not having them cherry pick through the documents before which that they turn them over. And that's something that the court was very interested, as are we, in terms of learning.
All right, so let me kind of break this down. There was a hearing earlier today. Was the hearing by phone or was it in person?
No, the hearing was in person before the judge there at the Southern District of Miami, and in attendance was Alejandro Brito as well as my counsel. It was Ben Brodsky was there in person. Danya Perry was via phone because, again, one of the things we were trying to do is to schedule this. Unfortunately, Brito, who again refused to cooperate with or be responsive, didn't give Danya any indication that anything was going forward, whether it be the deposition or so on. And then just to go down for a hearing was unnecessary. So the court was kind enough to permit her to do her appearance by phone, simply because I had Ben Brodsky there in Florida to handle, the discovery information there in Florida.
So going into the hearing, though, you didn't know, your lawyers didn't know that this other lawyer who Trump just brought on the team, who entered the appearance, like you had no clue that that lawyer was going to show up and that they were to make the argument that based on Donald Trump's desire to potentially invoke his Fifth Amendment right, they needed to bring in a new lawyer. Like that just happened at the hearing. Hasn't been reported anywhere else.
Well, I don't
That
know.
was a
I don't know
surprise.
that to be. Yeah, I don't know that to be accurate. I wasn't aware of it until like right before the hearing. But I'm not certain as to when everybody else knew about it. I knew
Got it.
that they were bringing on someone else. This I knew. I didn't know if it was for real or not. I think it's like Chris Kaiser or something like that, who they want to bring in. And because his daughter is having a child right now, that he couldn't make it for tomorrow. I do know that he was not in the courthouse today, but it was certainly one of the comments that was made, to the judge. And like everybody else, I wish the daughter, nothing but good things. Unfortunately, I also wish to have the opportunity to defend myself in a frivolous $500 million lawsuit.
So we all know that name, Chris Keiss, if that's who the
I'm not sure
lawyer
if that.
was,
I'm
right?
not sure if that's it. I can double check in a second. I truly don't remember because, in all fairness, I really didn't care. I mean, all I was really looking for is, the determination on when that we will have this deposition, this court-ordered deposition. And again, the part of for me, which I find very comforting, is that in less than 30 days, we will be deposing Donald Trump, as the judge stated, come hell or high water, as well as if the documents that they provided, which unfortunately I have not seen myself, believe it or not, because Trump's counsel marked everything privileged. And so that's now going to create another hearing that has to go in terms of the determination which documents will or will not be privileged. Trump is going to have to explain why he thinks that they should be deemed privileged. The whole thing is, again, very typical Trump playbook. Delay, delay, delay. Keep pushing this thing out more and more and more, despite the fact is the plaintiff, who generally wants to push a case forward, not Donald. He wants to delay everything. And again, like what he originally wanted, he wanted the deposition to occur sometime within 90 days post the election.
So again, just kind of breaking it down because there's a lot of data here for the brigaders and for anybody, to understand, especially those that don't know the federal court kind of procedures and proceedings. So Donald Trump sues you for $500 million, makes a number of frivolous allegations, and then he fundraises off that. You respond by filing a motion to dismiss and conducting discovery. you request production of documents, and you request Donald Trump's deposition. Donald Trump tries to avoid his deposition. Donald Trump's lawyers claims it would cause him embarrassment. That's actually in the pleading. It would harm Trump's reputation. And in a case that Donald Trump brought against you, Donald Trump said he didn't want to sit for that deposition. Ultimately, the court said, no, you're sitting for a deposition. So then Donald Trump's response to that is, well, I want everything to be designated confidential. I want blanket privilege. I want blanket confidentiality. The judge then has to respond to that. And the judge says, no, on a case-by-case basis, if there are things that are truly confidential, you can mark it. It could be subject to challenge, but this is a federal court proceeding. It is presumptively public, but if you have legitimate confidentiality designations, go and make those designations. Then after all of that takes place, you have a deposition that's scheduled for September 6th. Donald Trump, before the deposition, turns over documents, but it doesn't seem like it is a fulsome and complete document production. And he does exactly what the judge says don't do by basically making everything blanket privilege, even though he's harmed your reputation by filing that lawsuit. And then Donald Trump has his lawyers show up in court today, and they basically make excuses. And again, you are understanding, of course, if someone's daughter is getting married or whatever the circumstance is, but also you're being sued. But also you're being sued for $500 million, and you deserve your day in court, and you deserve discovery. So Trump's lawyers show up. They beg, hey, we can't, we're not ready, this, that, every other excuse. This other lawyer we need another lawyer in to deal with Donald Trump invoking the Fifth Amendment against self-incrimination. And finally, the judge, after all of that, says, come hell or high water, I'm paraphrasing, this deposition will now be taking place in 30 days. And Donald Trump file an affidavit that this was a fulsome and complete discovery, and that you've ran search terms and keywords and all of that. Did I accurately kind of summarize?
You did. The only one thing that I just want to bring to everybody's attention, and why I was somewhat disappointed in the fact that it was pushed out as far as to October 3rd, is because come October 2nd, you may recall, that's the beginning of the New York Attorney General's case. And that's when the case goes live. This, again, is something I can see somehow Trump's team trying to take advantage of. Hey, I'm now being sued. And don't forget, I'm expected to be called as a witness in that case as well. This is not the way it's supposed to be. I mean, we already know October 2nd is the date of that case beginning. Now it's October 3rd. Will he be able to then say, hey, I have a right to be there? I'm being charged, which of course he will not be, the same way he chose not to be for the E. Jean Carroll case. But nevertheless, October 2nd is the start of the Tish James New York Attorney General case against Trump and the Trump Organization. October 3rd is the date for the deposition to take place, the court-ordered deposition. So one of the things we talked about last week was the crazy calendar that Donald is going to have to now contend with for the next almost year. And this is a perfect example of their delays pushing everything into a truncated period, which makes it more and more difficult to effectuate the goal, which in this specific case was the deposition. So again, I was certainly hoping, I had my fingers crossed that the judge would say, bullshit, you knew well in advance that tomorrow is the day that you were supposed to be deposed. I understand, find a different lawyer if this lawyer is unable to appear because of a family issue. And again, as wonderful as it is, and I wish him and his family nothing but good things with the birth of a grandchild, that should not affect this deposition. It just shouldn't, because they keep pushing it off again, and again, and who knows what will happen next. Well, one thing we know is that the October 3rd deposition date is one day after the start of the New York Attorney General case. So again, it just goes into the whole issue of what's happening, and with all of the various cases, the 4 criminal cases, the civil cases, all of the other matters, soon the E. Jean Carroll case. I mean, these are all smashed together into a truncated calendar because these trials take time, 5, 6, 7, 8 weeks.
When I talk to people who still support Donald Trump, I try not to raise my voice, and they usually will start doing the name calling, and oftentimes what I just say to them is, okay, so if all of those things that you're saying are true, then why is it that when they go into a courtroom, they don't make those arguments? If Donald Trump wants to sue Michael Cohen for $500 million and haul Michael Cohen into a federal court proceeding, and Donald Trump believes that he has evidence to support that, otherwise, don't file a lawsuit destroying someone's life. And then Michael Cohen says, okay, Donald, you sued me. You've harmed me. You've harmed my family yet again by doing this.
Yet again.
Now, Donald, I want to go through an evidence-based system where I want to exchange the documents and the facts. And you're saying, I'm ready to go. Here's the evidence. And Donald Trump is saying, yeah, my lawyers, sisters, cousins, third cousins, they're not available. Fifth Amendment, reputation. I'm going to be embarrassed. Everything's confidential. No cameras there. So, as between Michael Cohen, just as just one example, saying, here are the facts, and Donald Trump running and hiding like a coward in a case that he filed. That's supposed to be the big tough guy. Really? The guy who's running away right now, scared shitless because Michael Cohen's asking for his deposition? Are you kidding me?
Well, I understand why he would be fearful of a deposition because, Donald, as we have seen in the previous depositions that are both transcribed and videoed, his performance, his ability within which to tell the truth, leaves a lot to be desired if you're if you're Donald Trump or his lawyers. So, I can assure you, between Danya Perry and Ben Brodsky, we're going to be more than fully prepared within which to hold him to account on all of the allegations and all of the specific allegations that he had made against me in the complaint. And he's going to have to explain a lot, including the $500 million number. Hard to imagine that, I or anyone for that matter could ruin the guy's reputation or damage his reputation worse than the damage that he caused himself. I mean, you're talking about a guy who has now been charged with 91 different counts. You're talking about somebody that was impeached twice. You're talking about somebody who has been indicted 4 times, soon possibly 5. On top of that, somebody who was found guilty of sexual assault, not only once, but soon again in the additional defamation portion, of this, because he can't keep his mouth shut. A guy who has historically lied to the American people when he was president of the United States no less than 30,000 times. I mean, I can go on and on and on about all of the things that damaged the guy's reputation. Me calling him out in terms of the things that he did, including an unconstitutional remand, including things that are associated to Bill Barr and to, the Southern District of New York prosecutors, Jeffrey Berman, who even states so in his own book. I mean, this is really, it's almost laughable. And if it wasn't that it was Donald Trump with a $500 million lawsuit, yeah, it would be laughable.
When you go through and read that deposition taken back in April by the New York Attorney General's office in connection with the civil fraud case set to go to trial next month. You see that 500 million, 2 billion, 10 billion, whatever. Donald Trump basically admitted in that deposition that he doesn't use appraisals. He says that it's just common sense. And like Coca-Cola, he says he attributes the value that he thinks that makes sense to him. And he goes, and he said this over and over again in the deposition under oath. He goes, well, the Saudis will always come in and buy it for some ridiculous amount
That
if
was
I
weird,
want them to.
wasn't it? That's scary shit. I mean, that's really scary stuff that the Saudis are coming. There's also a whole thing about Donald allegedly transferring Mar-a-Lago to Don Jr. But then I read somewhere else that that wasn't true, that it was somehow made up and put out there. Who put it out there? I have no idea. So I'm dying to know whether or not it's true or not. If it is, obviously there'd be a clawback. But if it's not true, it just goes to show you the dangers of misinformation, disinformation, and malinformation.
Yeah, and I suspect that the Don Jr. thing either isn't true. Regardless, let's recall there's a financial monitor who has been appointed in connection with the New York Attorney General's civil case. So there's someone overseeing those transactions. So a transaction like that cannot just go under the radar given the current posture. But we don't even have to talk about whatever that thing was on Zillow, because all I have to do is look at what Donald Trump said in the deposition, what's in the deposition transcript. That's not me, Ben MeidasTouch, saying Donald Trump says he'll run to the Saudis. No, you can go watch the full hot take that I did where we very specifically go through what took place in the deposition. Our editor-in-chief, Ron Filipkowski of MeidasTouch.com, did a fantastic overview of the 450 plus page deposition as well, with page numbers and citation. But over and over again, Donald Trump would say that he would just make up the valuations that he wanted, and that worst comes to worst, like Turnberry, the Saudis would come in and pay an outrageous amount for it and prove that his valuations are correct, that he was making up. He also stated that Eric has been the one responsible for the statement of financial conditions for the past 5 to 6 years. And Donald Trump, as you've always said, Cohen, he's very simple-minded. So his lawyers told him the statute of limitations of kind of 5 to 6 years are what's at issue here. So the reason that he very specifically chose the years where he says he wasn't involved and Eric was to try to make a statute of limitations claim in the summary judgment motion that they filed, which his lawyers then point the finger at Eric. He also claims his NFTs are worth about $82,500 each for some of the NFTs. Claims Mar-a-Lago was worth or is worth $1.25 billion, that Miami Doral is worth in the billions. And then he kept on talking about the worthless clause over and over again in the deposition. He goes, I've got the worthless clause. And he's referring to, I think, the disclaimer. And he believes that the worthless clause means that it is worthless to rely on his statement of financial conditions. Quite the contrary. He's an idiot. I think somebody was giving him advice that the disclaimer is worthless. The underlying clause is worthless because if you're still committing fraud, you can't put a clause in your contract that says, yes, I defrauded you, but it's your fault if you rely on my fraud. And by the way, if you look at the actual disclaimer by Meiselas, it's actually not a strong clause for Donald Trump at all. It's a strong clause for Meiselas, but Meiselas says, we relied on him for everything. So if anything happens, go after him and not us. That's what the clause is. So that's what the deposition said. Cohen, what would you make of that deposition?
Yeah, so obviously I've seen it. It's a page and a half, the very first page and a half of each and every one of the statement of financial worth that was produced for him. I think there's a lot more here than just the disclaimer. And I believe without getting into the exact sum and substance, because this is going to be an extremely hot topic during the New York Attorney General's case against the Trump Organization and Donald, which has much to do with these statements of financial condition. There's a lot more to this than Donald Trump's reliance on the disclaimer saying that you can't hold anything inside these documents to be factually accurate, and you need to do your own due diligence. Yeah, there is a certain sense to that. However, I don't think that they're reading it, and I don't think that they're using that disclaimer the way that it was designed, or the way that the New York Attorney General will be presenting her case. I think he's very, like what you just said, I think he's very much mistaken. But then again, the biggest problem that he has are the lawyers that are around him. They don't want to get into conflict with him. It would be like if you and I, right? You don't want to argue with me, and so as a direct result, you just agree with whatever it is that I say, regardless of how idiotic and moronic and childish the comments are. It doesn't matter. They're like, oh, you're right, Donald. Yeah, the disclaimer that exonerates you completely. It's a full and complete exoneration. So what does he do? Well, he goes to his untrue social platform. Now he goes to X, formerly Twitter, in all caps, puts, I'm fully exonerated. I have a disclaimer. And he makes these obviously self-serving statements on a regular basis. Of course, he puts them in all caps because that connotes the seriousness of the issue and his, fervent belief in whatever it is that he's putting in. It's so stupid. I mean, honestly, if he had half a brain, he'd be sitting down right now with the Attorney General and figuring out exactly how to get himself extricated from this problem for the least amount of money. Because knowing what I know and knowing the level of the misstatements and over the number of years, plus you have penalty and interest that gets accumulated, you're talking about substantially more. And I'm going to say it again, substantially more than the baseline of $250 million that Tish James is seeking. I predict it's going to be more than twice that amount by the time that they're finished with him.
Well, you're not speculating here because you actually are a witness, are you, in the case?
Yes,
Are
but
you
I
not?
don't know. I don't know their, I don't know their case. I know the things that, have been asked of me and so on.
Correct.
But nobody has said to me, hey, look, we're looking to go for X. I've never had any conversation like that. But
Correct.
I
You're
do
going to go when you
suspect,
testify.
I'm just trying to deduce from questions that I know were asked of me and information that they're relying on.
And look, you were deposed as well in that action. Alina Habba was the one who took that deposition. You are going to be a witness when that case goes to trial as well in the next month. And, one of the things that I wonder as well is the Manhattan District Attorney, clearly Alvin Bragg has access to this deposition transcript. We know that Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg is continuing to investigate other crimes. He said so before, publicly, committed by Donald Trump. Just the order of priority for Alvin Bragg, he brought the falsification of business records case first, but that didn't mean he's not bringing the other case. But now he's got this deposition, Michael Cohen. I mean, and it's a powerful deposition. And I know you're a witness, so there may be limitations, of course, on what you can say, but it is powerful hypothetically if a Manhattan district attorney were focused on some of the other potential crimes, and perhaps as they relate to what was on Trump's taxes, how the financial fraudulent valuations could have impacted that and could potentially be criminal, huh?
Yeah, look, one of the problem I can't go into any more than what has already been publicly disclosed by Alvin Bragg's office, the prosecutors there for the Manhattan DA in this upcoming case, which is now scheduled for March of 2024. I mean, I want people to understand that the October case, they're looking at potentially like an 8-week trial, which brings you into December. Then, I know that there's also some other matters that are outstanding and pending. And then you also have, which will possibly create a conflict. Jack Smith has, a matter which is also due sometime in March. There's so much, again, going back to the calendar. But, one of the things that both the Manhattan DA, the New York Attorney General, as well as the various different congressional committees, the 7 that I had spoken with, as well as other agencies. The one thing that I have that I do is anytime that I provide a statement on something, I have a document or they have a document which validates and corroborates my testimony. Not only do they have this, which is called documentary evidence, in order to corroborate the information that I'm providing, but they also have other testimony from individuals that corroborated. I don't see the necessity for these 8-week trials, especially on something that is just so blatantly obvious. But then again, they're going to start calling a multitude of witnesses. They're going to put everyone on the stand, myself, of course, included. And I suspect that it will be a 9-hour deposition, cross-examination by counsel, basically calling me everything in the world, trying to impeach my credibility again and again. And the impeachment of my credibility was only something that, Donald and the GOP and the sycophants ended up attempting to do, whether it was behind closed doors in the skiffs when I was testifying before the other committees or when I was live before the House Oversight Committee. It's basically to just damage me as much as they possibly can. And they're going to try to do that in this upcoming New York Attorney General case, hoping that then they could use some of that in order to, again, harm me and impeach my credibility when it comes time for the Manhattan DA case, because that's another one that's making Donald crap in his diapers. And that's a criminal matter, unlike the, Tish James case, which is a civil matter.
Moments ago, as we were talking about the civil fraud case brought by New York Attorney General Letitia James, New York Attorney General Letitia James filed a motion for sanctions against the defendants in their case, Donald Trump and his adult kids as well, basically saying that in the summary judgment motions that were filed by the defendants, by Trump and his kids and everyone else, they basically recycled the exact same arguments that were rejected by the court before, specifically an argument that the New York Attorney General lacks standing, that the statute is unconstitutional, and other kind of related things that the judge has already rejected on the law. But Trump just continues to, it doesn't bother him, just even if it's been rejected, bring it over and over and over again. But we are marching ever closer to justice, and a trial will take place there. He can try to run away from all of these things. He tries to run away from your deposition. In the E. Jean Carroll case, he tried to run away to Ireland and Scotland, but ultimately justice catches up, and we're seeing that over and over again. And the American people, I think, are getting it now, and they're getting it now, especially where you see the contrast between, like, on something like Labor Day, like, what's Donald Trump doing? What's President Biden doing? What are the supporters of Donald Trump doing? What are the supporters of President Biden doing? Donald Trump whining, complaining, obnoxious, hate-filled lies. President Biden talking about jobs, lowering prescription drug prices. I want to talk about all of that, as well as George Santos seems to be negotiating a plea agreement. And let's talk about some updates with special counsel Jack Smith. But let's take our first quick break of the day. Ben Meiselas here. Did you know that your temperature at night can have one of the greatest impacts on your sleep quality? If you wake up too hot or too cold, I highly recommend you check out Miracle Made's bed sheets. Inspired by NASA, Miracle Made uses silver-infused fabrics and makes temperature-regulating bedding so you can sleep at the perfect temperature all night long. Using silver-infused fabrics originally inspired by NASA, Miracle Made sheets are thermoregulating and designed to keep you at the perfect temperature all night long, so you get better sleep every night. These sheets are infused with silver that prevent up to 99.7% of bacterial growth, leaving them to stay cleaner and fresh 3 times longer than other sheets. No more gross odors. And get this, Miracle sheets are luxuriously comfortable without the high price tag of other luxury brands and feel as nice, if not nicer, than bed sheets used by some 5-star hotels. Stop sleeping on bacteria. Bacteria can clog your pores, causing breakouts and acne. Sleep clean with Miracle. Go to trymiracle.com/beat to try Miracle Made sheets today. And whether you're buying them for yourself or as a gift for a loved one, if you order today, you can save over 40%. And if you use our promo BEAT at checkout, you'll get 3 free towels and save an extra 20%. Miracle is so confident in their product, it's backed by a 30-day money-back guarantee. So if you aren't 100% satisfied, you'll get a full refund. Upgrade your sleep with Miracle Made. Go to trymiracle.com/beat and use the code BEAT to claim your free 3-piece towel set and save over 40%. Again, that's trymiracle.com/beat to treat yourself. Thank you, Miracle Made, for sponsoring this episode.
And now let's take a quick break to talk about our next partner, Fume. Cold turkey, it may be great on sandwiches, but there's a better way to break your bad habits. We're not talking about some weird mind voodoo from your wacky neighbor or some sketchy message board. We're talking about our sponsor, Fume, and they look at the problem in a different way. Now, not everything in a bad habit is wrong. So instead of drastic, uncomfortable change, why not just remove the bad from your habit? Fume is an innovative, award-nominated device that does just that. Instead of electronics, Fume is completely natural. Instead of vapor, Fume uses flavored air. And instead of harmful chemicals, Fume uses all natural, delicious flavors. You get it. Instead of bad, Fume is good. It's a habit you're free to enjoy and makes replacing your bad habit easy. Your Fume comes with an adjustable airflow dial and is designed with movable parts and magnets for fidgeting, giving your fingers a lot to do, which is helpful for de-stressing and anxiety while breaking your habit. The first time I used Fume, I was shocked at how flavorful and fresh it tasted. Now, it's easy to hold and perfectly balanced and quite honestly, extremely fun to fidget with. The real wood material and sleek design definitely classes it up, and I feel pretty darn cool holding it. Stopping is something we all put off because it's hard, but switching to Fume is easy, enjoyable, and even fun. Fume has served over 100,000 customers and has thousands of success stories, and there's no reason that can't be you. Head to tryfume.com and use code BEAT to save 10% off when you get the Journey Pack today. That's tryfum.com and use code BEAT to save an additional 10% off your order today.
Welcome back. We're live. Political Beatdown. Michael Cohen, Ben Meiselas. One day after Labor Day, and the contrast could not be any more clear. I want to show you first Donald Trump's message on Labor Day, and then I want to compare it to what President Biden was saying on Labor Day. Then, Cohen, I'd love your reaction to both. First, let me play you what Donald Trump said on Labor Day. Play the clip.
You're going to hell, and your bosses are leading you right down the tubes. You shouldn't pay your fees. They get these big fees from all of their workers. And it doesn't matter how bad they are, they'll endorse a Democrat, even though the Democrat's selling you down the tubes. And I'm telling you, you shouldn't pay those dues. You should not pay your dues because they're selling you to hell. You're going to be going to hell. You're not going to have any jobs. All those cars are going to be made in China. Every one of them. You can forget it, Michigan. You can forget it, South Carolina. You can forget it, everybody. All of those cars are going to be made in China.
Michael Cohen, what's your reaction?
It's pathetic. I mean, there's no other way to describe him. It is pathetic. Now all of a sudden he's sitting there, don't pay your dues, right? Everything's going to be made in China. I mean, it's so stupid. If you the fact that he could even put that out, thinking that this is smart, that this is beneficial to him. Again, it's nothing more than sowing divisiveness in this country. Think about how many times he used the word hell, right? I mean, it's the whole purpose of Trump's statement is basically to scare people. Who he's scaring, I don't know. And if there's a single member in any union, regardless of what the union is, the bricklayers union, the scaffolding union, the auto workers union, the carpenters union, anyone who is a union member that would even contemplate for a split second on voting for Trump needs to have their fucking head examined. Think about what this guy just put out there. Think about the statement that he's making. He's gaslighting. He's blowing that dog whistle all over again. I mean, I don't even understand what was there is no rationale behind the statement other than to put you on edge and to make you feel like Joe Biden is going to cost you your job. And the reason that he's doing it is because somewhere along the line, he either read or heard that the unions are endorsing Democrats, that the unions are going to endorse Donald Trump. So because he is, in his mind, the narcissistic sociopath that he is, he now needs to get off of his chest this anger towards the union for not endorsing him. And what do? You turn around and you try to create divisiveness within that organization itself. Pathetic.
That was what Donald Trump said in Labor Day. This is what President Joe Biden's message was. Let's play this clip.
We also passed the bipartisan infrastructure law. You can't have the strongest economy in the world with a second-rate infrastructure. Can you believe we used to have the best infrastructure in the world, and then we fell to number 13 in the world, roads, bridges, internet, the whole deal. 13, the United States of America, 13th in the world. But guess what? Guess what? The great real estate builder, the last guy here, he didn't build a damn thing. Under my predecessor, Infrastructure Week became a punchline. On my watch, infrastructure has been a decade and it's a headline. And folks, we're investing in America, in our roads, bridges, ports, airports.
The contrast cannot be clear.
Unity, it can't be greater. Unity, you're talking about growth, you're talking about benefiting. Here's the word of the day: benefiting all Americans, not just Republicans if you're Donald Trump, not just only Democrats if you're Joe Biden, but Joe Biden wanted to benefit all Americans because America, yes, we have been on a decline in terms of infrastructure. I mean, how many times have we seen bridges and tunnels and roadways collapsing, over time due to climate change? Another word that Trump doesn't ever want to talk about. And so Joe Biden wants to bring back infrastructure, pass the infrastructure bill, which will help also to reduce the deficit. Good for him. And I don't understand this animus towards Biden, even by some Democrats, based upon the age. The guy seems to be doing a whole lot. Now, there are things that I would like him to do more. There are things I don't agree with, but overall, you have to say whatever it is that he's trying to do, he truly believes will help all America, and it will unify all Americans, as opposed to the divisive language that just constantly emanates under that gaping hole under Trump's nose.
Maybe it's because of social media or TikTok culture or the failure of large media to hold Donald Trump accountable, a combination of those multiplicity of factors. But to your point, this kind of raging acceptable ageism is not acceptable at all. It is disgusting. Yes, is President Joe Biden older, an older gentleman? Yeah, but I want someone who's wise and calm and compassionate, who surrounds himself with smart people and who has implemented, if any of these policies you look back at for the first 2 years, you would say any of these policies was historic in nature and scope. And so when people give me the, well, President Biden is old and senile, it's like, where are you getting that
Let's
from?
also not forget that he's only a few years, and when I say a few, I think it's like 3 years older than Donald. Interestingly enough, during vacations or holidays, you do see Joe Biden on a bicycle.
Yep.
Right. I'd like to see Trump put his ass onto a bicycle seat. No, you'll find it in a golf cart. So, I mean, it really has to tell you, one guy, is let's just say under 215, and the other guy is above 215. There's no doubt about that one.
Let me show you too where I think that stems from and why I think our work as the Beatdown Brigade is so critical here. You mentioned how President Biden is serving as the president of all Americans. For example, Florida may have voted against President Biden. You have Ron DeSantis, who spreads hate about President Biden over and over again, vicious lies over and over again, this performative fascist outrage like we saw in the debate and every day. But when a hurricane hit, President Biden's out there wanting to help and ready to meet. But Ron DeSantis did not show up and blamed logistical concerns as why he couldn't be there with President Biden. The reality is that DeSantis simply didn't want to be photographed with President Biden because MAGA Republican is a mutation of pettiness and anger and grievance and hate. So let me show you. This is when President Biden was in Florida, what he said when he was asked, hey, where's DeSantis? What's your message to him? Play this clip.
Your message to Governor DeSantis today.
I don't think he's going to be there.
Do you have a message for him?
We're going to take care of Florida.
Do you agree with him that the security apparatus isn't strong enough?
Do you?
And the question was, do you agree with him that the security apparatus isn't strong enough and that's why he's not there? And President Biden's like, do you believe that? So what was the headline by the New York Times, Michael Cohen? Do you think it was the truth, which is DeSantis is petty and not showing up because he believes it's a political liability for him in a radicalized MAGA base? No, that's not what the New York Times ran with. Here's what the New York Times ran with as their headline. Biden won't meet DeSantis in Florida during tour of hurricane damage. Though President Biden said earlier on Friday that he would see Ron DeSantis on Saturday, the governor's office said there were no plans for a meeting. Now, Michael Cohen, with the facts that we have, how do you write that headline? But on the one hand, you have right-wing media like Fox and Newsmax, New York Post, OAN, just injecting disinformation into people's veins, right? That's one group. Then you have the New York Times and the Post doing this.
So let me be very clear about something. During a hurricane, during forest fires, during these wildfires and other natural catastrophes, there is no such thing as Republican. There is no such thing as Democrat. There is no such thing as independents. We are all Americans, and our hearts are supposed to go out like what transpired in Hawaii, what was taking place in California, what's now taking place in parts of Florida. I don't care if it's a Republican-based area. That's something Trump did. All right. When he is saying, well, I don't know. I mean, they didn't really vote for me. So why should I actually go out there? No, we are all Americans. And, when we are dealing with these natural catastrophes, we have to be unified. This is the stupidest thing I have ever seen. And for that, with all due respect, Ron DeSantis gets the two fucking middle fingers. The two-finger salute goes to Ron DeSantis for being an asshole and a half, for being an un-American dirtbag. You do not inject politics when Americans are suffering. That's plain and simple. The same thing that took place during COVID. It wasn't just Republicans dying. It wasn't just Democrats dying. It wasn't just independents. It was Americans that were dying. And we all need to coalesce around each other when the things get really bad. We have the right to disagree on policy. We have the right to disagree on certain, certain bills or issues that are being championed by either party. But one thing that you don't have the right is to hope that your fellow American suffers as a result of a natural catastrophe. We all need to be there for one another, regardless of party affiliation. And the fact that Ron DeSantis did not reach out to the president, did not turn around and say, together, we will walk these areas that have been decimated, people who had lost their lives, homes destroyed, roads destroyed. What are we going to do in order to assure that we fix this, we ameliorate the damage that was done in the most expeditious of manner? And together we can do that. The fact that DeSantis didn't do that, it's not a slap to the Democrats. It's not a slap to President Biden. It's a slap in the face of all Floridians, especially to the Floridians that are affected by the disaster. And for that, shame on him, you fucking idiot.
But in many ways, the New York Times covers for Ron DeSantis. Now, I don't expect the New York Times to necessarily say we're giving you the two-finger salute, but it's very easy. It's very easy to look at the objective data that exists and to simply put in your headline and the story what went down. You can say President Biden showed up, was ready to meet Ron DeSantis. Ron DeSantis claimed there were logistical issues, which is a suspect claim given the fact that DeSantis has met before with, during disasters with Donald Trump and others, and that was something that would be easy to address the logistical issues. And you can say that was questionable excuse by DeSantis if you still want to be soft on it, but you can accurately describe.
If Joe Biden can get there, the sanctimonious, the snot-nosed, whatever else you want to call him, he could get there too. I don't care. The resources available to the governor are limitless in order to get him to anywhere where this catastrophe took place. This is nothing shy of him playing politics off of the backs of Americans who are suffering.
But New York Times lets him, and Washington, Fox News is going to just give you.
We don't. Not here on Political Beatdown. We don't give a pass, right, Ben?
And that's why we've created this platform, and in many ways, this platform is now bigger than those other platforms, and there's a reason why. I just look at that and I'm like, what in the world are you doing? I saw some other story from a New York Times writer quote tweeting a Washington Post writer, doing a whole story on Biden's embellishments and doing a hit piece on Biden. I'm like, you're doing a hit piece on Biden's embellishments? Like, you realize there's legitimately a MAGA Republican Party that wants to overthrow our democracy and put you in jail. And your energy is directed at doing a weekend piece on Biden embellishments that are not even verified embellishments, but you're just saying sources have unconfirmed certain, like what are you talking about? But let's talk about outright liars, though, like MAGA Republicans. Now, George Santos is not like a fringe figure in the MAGA Republicans, right? He's fully embraced by the Kevin McCarthys, by Marjorie Taylor Greene. These are leaders of what the MAGA Republican Party is now. He's someone who's, of course, lied about every single thing in his life, from where he went to school to where he worked, to his parents being victims of 9/11, to his grandparents being victims of the Holocaust. The most disgusting and deranged, lied about his religion. And then he started a fake charity where he stole money from homeless veterans, saying that he was going to put their money to help get their dogs saved, and then he stole the money and let their dogs get killed, like the worst human. And he's what it means to be MAGA Republican. He runs around, in court with his pin on, with his AR-15 pin, high-fiving all of the MAGA Republicans. Yeah. Well, there's some data today that suggests that what we may be looking towards is the George Santos saga coming to an end. And the Department of Justice sent a letter to the federal judge in the Eastern District of New York. There was a hearing that was scheduled for this week on September 7th, but the DOJ requested a continuance. Now, the DOJ is not wanting to do continuances just because. And so when you read this letter by the DOJ to the judge, and the judge granted this extension from September 7th to October 27th, so a 20-day extension, here's the basis. Further, the parties have continued to discuss possible paths forward in this matter. The parties wish to have additional time to continue those discussions. And so, as well as I know, Cohen, that means that they're pretty far along in a plea negotiation. Doesn't mean they're going to enter one, but they're close. And what they're buying time for is to consummate a deal before the next hearing.
You see, DeSantis is an idiot. There's a big difference between his stupidity and Donald's stupidity. Donald's stupidity is based upon his narcissism. So he can never acknowledge the fact that he did wrong. He got caught. That's the definition of a narcissist. He obviously cannot acknowledge that he's ever done anything wrong. DeSantis is just an asshole, and he's an idiot, and he realizes that he's cooked, that they have enough information on a multitude of schemes that he was involved with for him to now say to himself, I don't want to forget about any time in prison. I don't want to spend the next 10, 15 years in prison. And so right now they're trying to negotiate a deal that is the most favorable to DeSantis. You see, Donald would never do something like that, again, because he can never, ever acknowledge that he did something wrong. His brain is just not wired for that.
I like that you merged DeSantis with George Santos. It is kind of a DeSantis Taylor Greene.
I'm sorry,
basically.
I meant George Santos. Same thing.
But we know what you.
He's another
birds of a feather.
Yes,
what I think probably happened as well, though, the DOJ was very strategic in the charges that they brought against Santos first.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was around 13 counts or so, but they have dozens of other counts that they can bring and that they didn't charge him. So I'm sure they went to him and said, we're about to drop a superseding indictment. If you thought that one was bad, we'll let you plead to 2 of these counts, or we're going to file a superseding indictment. But that's reading a lot between the lines there. I think that's what's been taking place.
It would be like one of those infomercials, Ben, where it's like, George, just wait, because there's more. And if you don't do this, we're going to throw in this. And then if you don't do that, we're throwing in 2 or 3 more. And he realizes that he's looking at a long, long haul. Not to mention, he doesn't have the money within which to fight it, because that's what the DOJ do. They bleed you dry. And trust me, I know.
And here I want to show you this is what George Santos was saying after he was arraigned. This is the kind of MAGA mutation language of victimhood, and they're all out to get us, and it's all a witch hunt. It is directly from the top with Donald Trump. When I show you what Santos said, this could just be Donald Trump speaking, but the other losers as well in the MAGA mutation group, they don't get the benefits that he gets. And his time of accountability is upon us right now as well. But just watch Santos. But this is not unique to George Santos. This is like any Republican speaking, oh, they're out to get me, deep state, wah, wah, wah. Here, play this clip of Santos.
Fight to defend myself. The reality is it's a witch hunt, because it makes no sense that in 4 months, 5 months, I'm indicted. You have Joe Biden's entire family receiving deposits from nine family members receiving money from foreign destinations into their bank accounts. It's been years of exposing. A lot of you here have reported on them, and yet no investigation is launched into them. I'm going to fight. I'm getting back to that. I'm going to fight my battle. I'm going to deliver. I'm going to fight the witch hunt. I'm going to take care of clearing my name, and I look forward to doing
Congressman, did you?
That's who the MAGA Republican Party is. Final words, Michael Cohen, as we kind of round this all up.
What's going to happen, he's going to end up pleading because he's guilty. He knows he's guilty. The lines of bullshit are very easy when you're standing in front of a microphone, right? And you don't have the full force and effect of the United States Department of Justice coming down on you like a ton of bricks, right? It's one thing. Even if, like, for example, in my book, Revenge, when I talk about I never committed tax evasion and I stand by it. I never committed any violation regarding a home equity line of credit. That's bullshit. Even then, you still can't fight, because what they do is they come down on you so hard and so fast. The only type of people who can actually fight the government, number one, you got to have a lot of money, and you got to have a lot of, for example, like in Trump's case, a lot of stupid people that are just throwing money in order to protect him legally. If you have that, well, you could stay afloat for a while, but it doesn't help in the long run. And very soon, we're all going to be listening to Kimberly Gargoyle standing there and saying the best is yet to come, screaming it as we watch them turn around and take Santos off to prison. And then we're going to see the same shit happen to Diaper Donald.
By the way, don't forget that the grand jury in Washington, D.C. is still impaneled, the one that indicted Donald Trump. And that grand jury set to expire September 15th, but it could be extended again. And Jack Smith still engaged in criminal investigations of Donald Trump for the fundraising schemes, potential money laundering, wire fraud, and other crimes. And we'll do a whole hot take on that as well. So, Michael Cohen, thank you for sharing with us all the developments in your civil case, the one that Donald Trump brought against you, frivolous case, but nonetheless $500 million. There's a legal defense fund link that we have here. It's right there on the bottom in the description, and it's right there, firewallfund.com. If you're able to contribute to Cohen's legal defense fund, all of that money goes to pay his lawyers in the civil case brought by Donald Trump against him in Florida. He's got some of the best lawyers as well. You talked about earlier the great work that they were doing. So if you want to contribute there, also check out Michael Cohen's book, Revenge, wherever books and audiobooks are sold. Incredible book, especially right now. It's more relevant than ever. It's kind of a roadmap to all of Donald Trump's moves, how Donald Trump weaponized the Department of Justice against his critics. So check that out wherever books are sold. Go to store.MeidasTouch.com as well for the best pro-democracy gear, 100% union made, 100% made in the U.S. And we will soon be launching, hopefully by the next episode, our own Political Beatdown Patreon. It's going to be called Michael Cohen's Beatdown Club, which is going to be super cool. We're working on that right now. And thanks to everybody who's joined the MeidasTouch Patreon and got to hear the origin stories of some of the hosts here, got to hear about Brett's trip to Japan. We do a really cool after show at patreon.com/MeidasTouch, patreon.com/MeidasTouch, MeidasTouch. We don't have outside investors here on the MeidasTouch network. So the way we help grow this platform are through fun things like the membership emojis. That's one of the ways we grow this. And then separately, there's the Patreon memberships. And that's, how we fund this as a Beatdown Brigade community, as a Meidas Mighty community. And we'll be doing the same here for Beatdown, where Michael Cohen, you can share kind of candid moments and post videos, and we'll do that all the time. And I'm looking forward to launching that as well. Everybody check out MeidasTouch.com as well for all the breaking pro-democracy news. MeidasTouch.com, led by our editor-in-chief, Ron Filipkowski. We got a great editorial team that we built that thanks to the memberships and things like that. So thank you all for helping support that. And Beatdown Brigaders, thank you for all of your support. None of this is possible without you. We are so grateful for you and your support. This community, compassionate, intelligent, unapologetically pro-democracy. We appreciate you. And the best way you can help out is just share the MeidasTouch Network, share Political Beatdown with just one friend, colleague, family member, coworker, neighbor, whoever. That has an exponential effect, and we can continue to grow this community together. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you next time on Political Beatdown. Shout out to the Meidas Mighty.